This episode is sponsored by SimpliSafe. It's delivered right to your door, is easy to set up on your own, and has affordable 24/7 live monitoring protection. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/Babish to learn more. Okay, so carbonara from an ingredients perspective alone is just an emulsion of water and different kinds of fat. In this case, Parmesan, egg yolks, and pork fat, traditionally from guanciale, a cured pork jowl. And in my search to make the ultimate carbonara, I eventually tried out a technique we learned in the Cacio e Pepe episode of Botched. That is, pre-emulsifying the sauce in a blender. We'll get back to that later. For any kind of carbonara, my cookware 1-2 punch is 12 inches each, stainless steel and cast iron. It's important that the pasta cooking pot be shallow and wide so that we can cook the pasta in a minimal amount of water, something I forgot to get. I got about 2-3 inches of water in my 12-inch skillet that I'm going to heavily salt and bring to a boil. Meanwhile, I'm going to start the guanciale off in a cold pan and slowly cook it so that its fat renders out evenly. Now, ideally, you want to start cooking your pasta as the bacon finishes cooking. I did not do this, so I am preemptively stealing 1.5 cups of precious pasta cooking water, straining the pasta, tossing with a little bit of oil to make sure it doesn't stick, covering and keeping warm while we finish cooking our bacon. Now, over in the blender, we've got our 3 egg yolks and 4 ounces of finely grated Parmesan cheese. While that cup of pasta cooking water is still hot, we're going to slowly stream it into the blender while it runs. Turn off the blender, finish cooking the guanciale, and then once it's done, we're going to stream about 1/4 cup of its fat into the running blender. Now here you're going to see a fascinating moment where I accidentally drop a chunk of guanciale into the blender. Then I'm like, oh, I gotta start over. Then I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, what if I just liquefy the bacon? I gotta turn on the blender, hang on a second. I know liquid bacon might not sound super appetizing, but if you've got a powerful enough blender, it emulsifies it seamlessly into the sauce, making it ever thicker and creamier. Back in the pan, we're leaving 1/4 cup of fat remaining as we add our cooked pasta, along with our remaining reserved cup of pasta cooking water. Now this recipe calls for 1/2 pound of pasta. I think I overdid it a little bit, so I'm taking some out, but the rest I'm cooking together for about 1 minute over low heat, then killing the heat entirely and keeping the pasta moving while I slowly stream in our blender bacon emulsion thing, which starts to thicken as it hits the residual heat of the pan and then further thickens as it cools, much like normal carbonara, but super creamy and 100% foolproof and adjustable. So not only does this technique yield far and away the best carbonara I've ever had in my life, one that's easier to prepare and harder to screw up, but it also affords us the opportunity to treat carbonara as a sort of base sauce from which endless possibilities and combinations become possible. In fact, I submit that with the right combinations of fats and waters, you could carbonara damn near anything. Let's start easy and make a vegan version of our carbonara. Standing in for our bacon, as is so often the case, is mushrooms. In this case, hen of the woods or maitake mushrooms trimmed of their bases, cut into bite-sized pieces and then sauteed. But since they contain no fat, we need to bring our own from home. So I've got about 1/2 cup of light olive oil here, that's high smoke point olive oil. I'm adding the mushrooms and sauteing until deeply brown, like 15 minutes. Once things are just starting to turn brown, now is a good time to add your pasta to your pre-boiling pot of water. This time I'm going to make sure that I'm using exactly 1/2 pound so we don't have any more embarrassing pasta pull-out situations. And then by the time the pasta's done, you should have some nice, deeply brown mushrooms. Meanwhile, over in the blender, we are combining 1 tablespoon of red miso paste, about 1/4, make it 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast, and about 1/4 cup of the vegan egg replacement of your choosing. Then once the mushrooms are done cooking, it's the same procedure as before, slowly streaming in about 1/4 cup of the cooking fat into the running blender and then setting aside. Back on the stovetop, I'm finishing the mushrooms with about 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika, toasting that around for about 30 seconds over medium-low heat before adding the pasta. Ideally straight out of the water, just like this, so you have all the pasta cooking water you could ask for. Again, about 1/2 cup of which we're adding back to the pasta, cooking together for about 1 minute over very low heat, and then back over at the blender, we're streaming about 1 cup of our pasta cooking water into the blender as it runs. Then killing the heat entirely under the pan as we keep the pasta moving and pour in our vegan carbonara emulsion sauce. Season to taste with kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper. Try to lift and toss the pasta rather than just mix it, aerating the sauce and maximizing creaminess. And there you have it, a fully vegan carbonara that is every bite as good as a real carbonara. No bullshit. It obviously doesn't taste exactly the same, but has the same amazing creaminess and texture with a rich, savory flavor all its own. And both this and the meat-based carbonara sauces are remarkably stable. They don't break, they're not oily, and even after sitting out for 30 minutes, a little bit of warm water brings what would normally be a concrete block right back to life. So now the real question, what else can we carbonara? What about a straight up mac and cheese? To really put this to the test, I'm grating 4 ounces of the oldest, oiliest cheddars I can get my hands on, 4 to 6 years old. From there on out, the technique is pretty similar. I'm using thick cut bacon instead of guanciale, macaroni instead of long pasta, and am supplanting the sauce with fresh garlic, a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and a few dashes of hot sauce. You might also notice that I'm attempting a double batch with a pound of pasta. And it was only at this point that I realized that I'd only made a normal batch size of sauce, so I only had half the sauce that I needed. Nevertheless, the sauce still looked really creamy even if there wasn't enough of it. To save the batch, I decided to let things cool off a little bit and add another 6 ounces of grated cheese, and some pickled jalapenos, because why not, folding together so that the unmelted cheese was evenly distributed, returning it to the pan, and pivoting, as we so often do in life, to the best possible outcome of a bad situation. Mixing together 2 cups of panko breadcrumbs with about a half stick of melted butter, and about 2 ounces each grated Parmesan, cheddar, and white cheddar cheese. Because, as Thomas Jefferson used to say, cheese, 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 I love the cheese, I'm a cheesy boy. Top up our cast iron pan of mac and cheese with our cheesy breadcrumb mixture, press it down flat, maybe show off its flatness to your nearest Kendall, and pop it into a 400-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 20-25 minutes until deeply golden brown and crisped on top. Scoop it out, and behold, in spite of only having half the cheese sauce necessary and swimming in ultra-old cheddar, being heated and baked and patted with other cheese, our sauce has not broken. I know it's kind of rich to even compare this to carbonara, but I hope this method helps you to think differently about cheese sauces. Just like I hope today's sponsor, Simply Safe, helps you think differently about your home security. It really is that easy to set up. The system gets shipped to your door and you can set it up in about 30 minutes. You don't need to call an installation expert or tech-savvy friend to do it for you. You can do it yourself. Simply Safe doesn't have a long-term contract and the monitoring costs less than $1 per day. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/Babish to learn more.